been making a few videos today, and whilst I was waiting for the video to copy and do its thing, make its video, I thought instead of just waiting for it, I'll watch a movie. I got a few movies the other day and never heard of this movie before, and I sort of thought it didn't sound that good, but I thought, well, let's give it a go. Leonardo DiCaprio, you know, sometimes it's a bit cheesy. It's like watching a little boy, you know, but maybe it's okay. And wow, what a movie. I didn't realise it was so highly acclaimed, winner of all sorts of awards, but what a movie. I mean, I was crying in quite a few parts of it, crying, tears out of my eyes. So emotional a movie. Not at what happened to the people, not at the brutal stuff, but at the sadness, if you like, of the human condition. And this was really the American genocide. This is what this is, the American genocide. And it's the best movie I've ever seen. There's another movie called Dances with Wolves, which is also quite moving, but I think this is even more so, because what it does is it shows the two opposites. It shows the worm-like evil of the one side, the white man coming into the Americas, and then the good Indian on the other side, who is just trying to defend his hunting grounds. You know, it's the only place he's got. And I mean, these people, they killed every buffalo that ran on the plains. Yeah, they killed, in the end, first they killed them just for their skins, and then they didn't even bother with the skins. They just cut them, cut the tongues out. They cut the tongues out and sold the tongues. That was the most valuable part. It was easy, you know, just kill piles of them and just leave the carcass to rot. So it wasn't very long, it didn't take the Americans very long to get rid of all of the bison, just the way the cod have all disappeared. They haven't just disappeared, they've actually been gobbled up. They've been, a wanton act of violence has been made against nature. And they did the same thing to the buffalo. They did the same to the Native Americans as well, the Indians. And so they're just too much trouble. These people are too much trouble. They're not like us. They're not competitive. They work together, yeah. And so it's interesting you see that in the movie, because when the Indians come, they don't talk, they don't mess, they're just arrows, and you know, they're silent, they kill the people, and the people are running, they're running away. You can't run. Goodness me, you'll just get an arrow in the back, yeah. And so, shows it very well, this. And so, the two different opposite cultures coming together, like the same with the Israelis versus the Palestinians, same sort of thing, you know, it's genocide. And there's very few Native Americans left in the world now, whereas once upon a time the plains were full of them, full of their villages, and they didn't despoil all of the nature. They took what they needed, and nature was abundant. It was abundant enough to keep them all going, and they had different tribes, and if the tribes became bad and fallen, the other tribes would deal with them. The good tribes would deal with the bad tribes. So they had certain amount of intertribal warfare, which kept them under control. Yeah, you always got to keep populations under control. You don't have to do it. You've just got to take the laws away so nature can look after it. And you saw what a lawless place this was. Yet, this man that Leonardo DiCaprio plays, I think his name is Glass, this man suffers all this stuff that would normally kill a person just in minutes, and he just survives over and over again. because of his righteousness, yeah. And by being injured and having to go through the process, what he's doing is he's working off his karma, yeah. Now, if your karma's very light, what happened to me and I at Capricorn? This never happened to you, never. You know, I lived in nature, wild nature, with no protection from the elements, no protection from anything, through the winters, through the summers, for decades, or a decade probably, and more than a few years. And the worst thing that happened to me was I broke this tooth by biting on something. I did it myself. I could feel myself do it. I actually bit. I tried to open something. I think I tried to open something with my tooth, and it just broke my tooth off. I was supposed to feel myself do it, and you know, it was a thing that I had to get used to. Yeah, to have no front tooth. It was a bit of a blow to my ego or something. I don't know. And the guy I was with at the time took me to the dentist, and they stuck it back, but it just fell out a few days later. So you know, that was the end of it, really. So there was that episode, and I learned then that what it means is when a person has a front tooth missing like this, it means he's a battler. He fought some of these good fights that you see in the Revenant, okay? Which I did. I did fight some good, righteous battles, like a good knight on the pathway, yeah? I had my bicycle, I had my guitar, all a knight needs, and a good fight to fight in defense of a lady, yeah? Or in defense of all the ladies, or the future for children, and so on. So, I've been through all of this, all that nature can throw at me. I've had a few whole nights where I had no sleeping bag and it was freezing cold and I was a bit hypothermic in the morning. Difficult night, goes through the whole night freezing cold, yeah. But it makes a man out of you, and you don't want it to happen, you know, wouldn't will it yourself, will it to happen to yourself. You can get through these times. It's not that bad. Nothing like this. Nothing like this. And then once upon a time, the most painful time I had was I had a problem tooth and it got infected in my mouth, and I needed somebody to pull the root out that was, you know, ready to go, but didn't have to. It didn't want to come out by itself. Yeah. And so I had to, in Italy, I had to suffer some painful night, and then I had to turn around my bicycle, head back, drive on my bicycle 20 miles back to the hospital that I passed, and went and tried to get help there. I did manage to get help, and once I pulled it out, that was fine. I was alright after that, and I just carried on my journey. And I went right through Africa, went to the most terrible places in Africa, Mali, you know, where you can get killed there. This can happen to you in Mali. Nothing ever happened to me, nothing, because I don't have the karma. My karma is relatively light. The more time you spend on pilgrimage, like this is pilgrimage, what this guy's on, you know, forced pilgrimage. He has to be in the wilds by himself, deal with survival issues, survive without food, without water, I've had to do the same. And nothing like this happened to me, nothing like this. Sleeping bags appear, you know. Just everything takes care of itself. You end up in wonderful nature. So I know about nature. This is how nature taught me, because I have to teach you what I learned in nature, and how I learned about how all the insects and the animals and everything in nature cooperates and works together with man. Okay. That's enough. I'll take 5. Well, it's funny how movies always come in twos, and I've got the exact opposite of that movie, because that movie, what did I do with it? What did I do with it? What did I do with the movie? The Revenant is called. I didn't say what the name was. The Revenant. This movie is about the law of nature, how if you have no laws, no rule of law as they call it, that justice still happens in the world. Yeah, you saw how justice happened to all these people. How that man was raping the Indian lady, and he's the one that got the knife in him in the end. Yeah, yeah. So you can see you can't get away with it doing bad stuff. It comes back and gets you. Yeah. Just so happened that that guy was there at the right time and the right moment to save that Indian lady. Yeah. And many other incidents in here which could be called divine coincidence, or real word for it, providence. Providence is the opposite of chance, really. Chance says, oh, well, it's just chance, all chance. But providence says, no, it's provided for us in that way. Natural justice. So, the other movie, the opposite movie, is this one here. And it's called Runaway Jury. And when I saw this movie, I thought, well, doesn't look that great, but we'll give it a go, just like the other one. And wow, I really enjoyed this movie. I don't know why, I just really didn't like it. For some reason, I very much like any courtroom drama. I really like courtroom dramas. And this one had a very special twist. This one was that the trial was against the gun people. Funny, because I also found this book recently called The Weapons of the British Soldier. So it's funny how things kind of appear, at the same time, really. And this was against the people who make guns, and somebody had been killed with a gun, and they were taking the gun company, the manufacturer of the guns, to court. And they have this system whereby they have a very elaborate way of buying the jury, so that the jury's all been paid for. They know what the judgment is going to be in the end, because they're controlling it all from behind the scenes in this very expensive, elaborate, almost CIA style approach to it all. So it's quite an eye-opener, this. It's something that you don't really think about. You can see how, if it's not happening now, it could well be happening. Yeah, we don't know for sure whether this kind of thing is going on or not, but you can see how it might be. And so the corruption of the justice system, how you cannot really get justice under the rule of law when you've got corrupt courts. And it always was the job of the king, really. The king is the highest knight in the land. Yeah, that's the king. And he's supposed to be living in poverty, chastity and obedience. So he sets a good example. He doesn't have a palace, he doesn't have money, he's got nothing. And all he does is travels around the kingdom. And wherever he goes, because he doesn't come from a local area, he's seen as an impartial view on the subject. And so he's a perfectly good judge. And he completely depends upon the entourage that takes him around. And he'll go to a place, visit them and say, okay, what have you got for me to see? And this would be the court then would open. And they'd bring their parties in, and then the king would listen to the two sides, and then he'd pass judgment. That was it. Whatever the king decided, that was it. Not this jury nonsense. So it was a system that was incorruptible as long as you had a church, because the church baptized the king into his position, trained the king, especially for this role, and taught the king, set the rules that the king had to follow, so on and so forth. And so when you had real kings that were living in poverty, chastity and obedience, you didn't have a problem. But when the church fell, then you had corrupt kings who were living in palaces with loads of money and that. And to get money, they appointed parliaments. That's the origin of parliaments. So in the end, the parliaments kicked the king out of you. So well, why should he have all the money? We'll just have it instead. And so parliaments, fake kings were replaced by fake parliaments, because there were real groups. There were the guilds originally. guilds, they got together and they formed the town councils, and the town councils ruled on everything, and the guilds were represented at the town councils. Everybody belonged to a guild, all the masters belonged to a guild, so that everybody was represented. There wasn't a competition to sort of say, who do you vote for, him, oh not him, fight, fight, fight. There's none of that stuff. It was just all cooperative, yeah. Just like the Indians. And the Indians, Native American Indians, they had their own governments as well, yeah. Council of elders, and the tribes gathered together where the head of each tribe come together in a group, have a meeting, have a powwow and talk things over, make decisions. And because there was instant karma, so you had to behave yourself, yeah? You couldn't act like they do in Parliament, you know, on Grindr and all that stuff. You couldn't do all that nonsense goes on in Parliament, arguing and fighting, bickering amongst yourself. They just whip the tomahawk out, boom! You'd be scalped. You should watch it. If you haven't seen this movie, check it out. It's great. It's great. Very, very bloodthirsty. But for some strange reason, you can watch it and it's not horrifying. It's a funny thing about reality. Reality is not horrifying. This is the realest movie I've ever seen about people getting stabbed with knives and having things chopped off. There's a bear just bites a guy to death nearly, you know, in the movie. Very, very, very good special effects. Very, just real, so real. And because it's real, it's not scary. Yet, the most scary movie I ever saw, 2 movies, was Dracula and I can still remember the scene, and Frankenstein, and I can remember that scene too. And these are the most horrific things because they were completely unreal, completely fake. And the fake things are the scariest things in the world, yeah, the scariest things are fake. So all the fake organisations and all the fake governments and the fake media and all that, that's the scariest thing in the world, really. And this stuff, it's all real. I have no fear of any of this because I don't have the karma for it. I learnt my lessons. Nothing bad ever happens to me. And I don't mind saying that. It doesn't. Nothing. I get nothing but good fortune. My life wasn't always like that. But because I've understood some of the laws of nature, I now have nothing but good fortune. Yet, I have to live a life in poverty, chastity, obedience. Every day, every meal, virtually, I eat rice. Rice and beans. Now, I don't have tomato, I don't have anything else in there, just rice and beans and a squeeze of lemon today. That's all I've eaten today. There's nothing else in the house, that's all there is. And I made 4 videos. So I've done my work for the benefit of you lot, the children of the future. So I hope you're learning something from this, and I hope you enjoy these videos. There's not many of you, but it doesn't need many. All it needs is a few. That's all it needs, just so that these things that I've learned are not completely lost. Thanks for watching.